Hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and Bill Leon's joining us today.
Hello.
And we'll be joined by Hawk Ripjaw shortly thereafter. Now, we have quite a few movies to discuss since we weren't here last week. The main events we'll be getting to in a little bit because, unfortunately, neither Bill or I managed to see Spider-Man or Baby Driver. And in fact, you know what? Before we get into talking about new movies, Bill, why don't you explain why you didn't see Spider-Man?
I went to the movies last night with the intention of seeing Spider-Man. And I remember when I went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2 a few months back, we had to choose our seats, assigned seating in movie theaters. And I had the worst seats. Front row, off to the right. My head, my neck is cocked up watching this. Like, I loved that movie. I loved watching that movie, but my seating was atrocious.
Yeah, I agree with you that I would rather miss out on seeing a movie than getting bad seating. So was that basically what happened?
Yeah, we went to see Spider-Man, me and two friends, and all the seats were scattershot. We would not be able to sit together. They were all shitty seats. Again, like, they would have been very uncomfortable position to where my neck would be cocked back looking up at the screen. And I just said to myself, like, I'm paying almost $11 to go see this. Like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. Like, I want to, if I'm paying that much money, I want to be able to watch the movie and enjoy it. Like, not.
Yeah, and Spider-Man Homecoming is over 2 hours long. So you're going to need to, if your neck is crooked and in an uncomfortable position, I mean, it's no fun.
I am not a fan of this assigned seating thing that is becoming, and I understand why they do it. I completely understand why they do it. But the problem is I got off work at 8 o'clock. We got to the movie theater about 10 minutes after that. And there were maybe 3 screenings for the rest of the night. All the good seats were taken in every screening.
And I agree with you that the assigned seating thing is first come first serve, in my opinion, is in most cases a superior thing, because you get there and you choose your seats, and if you didn't get there early enough, then okay, you're the only thing at fault is you. Now, I guess you could make the same argument for assigned seating. It's just you have to plan days in advance, which is unfortunate because sometimes going to the movies is a spur of the moment thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was just really put off by. And like I said, I understand completely why they do it, especially in the busier summer months where people are going. It was a Tuesday night. Like, I was not thinking that it was going to be that packed on a Tuesday night. And
I'll tell you what, the one thing assigned seating has come in handy for is if you are going to a movie that you know darn well it's going to be a sold-out show, it allows you to plan in advance, and in some cases. Well, I'll tell you straight up what I did for Star Wars, because I knew it was going to be a bunch of awkward geeks.
Are you referring to the Force Awakens or Rogue One?
Force Awakens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Rogue One is Star Wars adjacent, but I don't really quite call it Star Wars.
You guys have had assigned seating for like that long. This is a new thing around here.
Right. Well, some theaters in my area have it, some don't. The one that does, it's this place, the Marcus Theater Group. They have lounge seats that recline and everything, and very comfortable. So what they actually do though is their recliners are in sets of 2. So for couples, so the couples can snuggle with each other, stuff like that. So when I went to Force Awakens, I didn't want to sit snuggled next to some awkward Star Wars fanatic when I saw it. So I ended up buying 2 tickets to see it, and so I had 2 loungers to spread out on. So I got to man spread like a motherfucker while watching Force Awakens, and it was an amazing experience.
I have a story, and I think I told this when we reviewed Force Awakens, so I'll make it brief. But my mom, the weekend it opened, was like, "Do you want to go see Star Wars?" And I was like, "Sure." My mom bought tickets online. She did not pay attention to what tickets she had bought, and she bought 3D tickets.
Oh.
Here's the thing. I remember walking into the theater that day and seeing a huge line for Star Wars, and I was like, "Fuck, we're going to be in a theater so full of people."
No one went to the 3D show.
Exactly. It was like it was me and my mom and like maybe 5 or 6 other people in there, and
Yeah.
I got to sit there and see the movie. The 3D, like that's not my preferred way to watch it, but if I can see it comfortably that way, I'm completely fine with it.
Oh, totally. And the fact is that they've been much better about booking these Star Wars movies. Like they put them in a lot more screens because they knew damn well that people were going to be crowding the hell out of the theaters. And here's the thing: it's just simply a much more comfortable experience when you've got a little bit of a buffer zone between people.
I might have seen Spider-Man.
Let's say that again.
I might have seen Spider-Man last night if. Because I had a friend, it was me and 2 friends, and one of my friends was like, I'm not seeing it in 3D. Fuck that. And I was like, listen, if we go in 3D, like there might not be a lot of people in the theater. We can get good seats, this and that. He's like, I don't want to see it in 3D. He would not have it.
I can't say I blame him because 3D to me is usually a waste of time and money because you would have been paying another few dollars for that ticket too.
That's true.
I have never seen a movie in 3D that in retrospect, I think absolutely has to be seen in 3D.
I don't think that, but I did see Coraline in 3D, and I thought that they did a really good job with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did a really good job, but do you absolutely have to see Coraline in 3D?
Absolutely not.
All right, well, there you go.
Yeah. I did not get to go see Jackass 3D in the theater.
I know Zach said that's the movie that sold him on 3D, which
I've heard a lot of people say that. That was kind of like the gist of people would say, "Oh, this is the best film to see in 3D," and I watched it in standard def after the fact. And they have these parts where it's like, "Oh, this was supposed to be in 3D," and I'm like, I'm curious. I would like to see that in 3D, but
I think my biggest problem with 3D these days is, to me, 3D is by its nature a gimmick. And if you watch movies from like the 1950s that were meant to be in 3D, they really have fun with it. There was this one movie, I forget what it was called, but it was like a gangland war movie, basically like 1940s kind of gangstery kind of thing. But the movie is it was with Jack Palance, and there's this great scene where you have a line of crooks walking down the street. All of them have machine guns, and they're getting ready for action. And Jack Palance at this one point in time flicks his cigarette right at the screen, and you're like, yeah, badass.
That's cool.
And then when they fire their Tommy guns, they fire it right at the camera. And so movies back then, they were like, we're going to do 3D. We're going to just throw everything we can at your face. When they do that, it can be a really fun experience. I saw Drive Angry 3D with Nicolas Cage.
Oh, how was that?
Believe it or not, that was actually a really fun movie. It's not a good movie, but it's if you want to see Nicolas Cage and William Fichtner just having a ball.
Both actors are phenomenal.
William Fichtner in the movie plays basically Satan's businessman. Like
I do want to say this is that it's very similar to Ghost Rider, right?
I would argue superior to. The concept is basically Nicolas Cage's character came back from hell to save his I believe like would-be daughter. And it's not just like he wasn't allowed by Satan. He escaped from hell. And at one point, William Fichtner gives him, or maybe it was stolen. I haven't seen the movie for a few years, but there's this gun in it called the God Killer, and it's like just a badass weapon that's able to kill immortal beings. And there's this whole subplot about this like crazy racist cult.
Yeah, it sounds like Ghost Rider Spirits of Vengeance with a little bit of Spawn in there.
But harder.
Yeah, but that's yeah. I'm intrigued by that film just because if you have somebody describe the synopsis to you, you're like, this is ridiculous.
Oh, it is, but it's Nicolas Cage ridiculous, which is a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I just it's one of those movies. Unfortunately it bombed really hard, which is too bad because it's a movie that just it also kind of reminds me of if you've ever seen Shoot 'Em Up.
I really enjoy that film.
Okay.
Haven't seen it in a while, but yeah.
It has that level of just I don't give a shit, where it's just like they're just going over everything in the movie is over the top.
Shoot 'Em Up is God damn it. There are so many little tiny details in Shoot 'Em Up that are just fucking fantastic.
The scene where he beats the crap out of the guy because he's sipping his coffee and going.
Here's something I learned about Shoot 'Em Up that when I tell you it may make you want to go back and rewatch it.
I own it, so
here's what I'm going to tell you. Paul Giamatti's character is Elmer Fudd, and Clive Owen's character is Bugs Bunny. To the point that when Paul Giamatti's character's cell phone rings, it plays the Rise of Valkyries.
Mm-hmm.
Killed a wabbit, killed a wabbit. There are mad little Looney Tunes references.
Well, and Clive Owen, of course, eats carrots.
He eats carrots, yes! Oh, that movie is fantastic.
He murders someone by shoving a carrot through his eye.
That movie is wonderful.
You're right, though. I guess it's one of those things where maybe I subconsciously understood that, but I don't think I'd ever vocalized in my mind. But when you say that, it totally makes 100% sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a very violent Bugs Bunny Elmer Fudd movie, and
yeah.
In fact, I'm actually reading the Wikipedia page to see if they even mention. It doesn't.
Do they mention? There is this YouTuber I discovered recently called Good Bad Flicks, and he did a whole little history of the making of Shoot 'Em Up. Apparently, it had been in production for a really long time.
Yeah.
It was in production for, I want to say, at least 6 years.
Yeah.
And joining us, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
From what I understand, the one of the reasons Shoot 'Em Up got written as a script is because the guy who wrote it was like, I want to write an action scene where somebody's having sex.
And the movie totally gets that done. Oh man, this is. I'm going through the trivia page for Shoot 'Em Up. It says here, in the beginning of the movie, during the rooftop scene where Clive Owen's character shoots the neon sign, it spells out, fuck you. He says, fuck you, you fucking fucks. That line is taken from the lyrics of the Strapping Young Lad song, You Suck. The band later appears in a music video on a television in the film.
Nice.
Strapping Young Lad is a very good band.
So yeah, I never realized that connection, but that's great. Apparently, 15 gallons of fake blood were used in the course of the movie. That's
not surprised. Not surprised.
Not quite the volume of blood used in Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, though.
Nobody's ever going to top that, are they?
No, probably not. All right, so to bring you up to speed, Hawk, we really haven't started talking about specific movies yet. We were more talking about Bill's experience failing to see Spider-Man due to some shitty movie theater experience.
Sort of. Like I said, I don't blame them. My complaint, Hawk, was assigned seating in movie theaters. Because, yeah, I went last night to get tickets, and there was nothing but bad seats left. So I was like, I'm not spending my money on this. And then I booked. But I understand why they do it, especially in the summer.
Economically, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And just to prevent overcrowding and things like that. But so that having been said, Hawk, now you saw Spider-Man Homecoming and you also saw Baby Driver, am I not mistaken?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Ooh, all right.
So what we'll do is we'll lead off by talking about Spider-Man Homecoming, since that's the main event. And then we'll talk about some of our other movies, and then we'll end with Baby Driver.
Now, I want to ask you, though, before you talk about this new Spider-Man, should Ken go back and rewatch the first two Sam Raimi films? Because
I saw them last year, man. You're not going to tell me.
All right.
You don't need to. In fact, I'd recommend that you not. These are...
Well, I'm not talking about to enjoy Homecoming. I'm just talking about because they're good movies. I think they're really good movies.
I would say see see the Raimi Spider-Man movies after you see Homecoming. Because as with any new film...
Homecoming. This is a film where Spider-Man loses his teeth, and it's called Spider-Man Homecoming.
The elderly Spider-Man.
Okay.
That's friendly Spider-Man.
So, as with any film, if you watch the old ones first, while you watch the new one, you're probably going to be creating a checklist of what it does differently and whether or not that's a good thing.
Let me say in advance, I have yet to see a Spider-Man movie that fully sold me. The first two Spider-Man movies I thought were promising. I have not even seen the third one because I don't care. And Amazing Spider-Man was meh and had some moments that really angered me. Amazing Spider-Man 2 I thought was better than the first one, but still very, very, very problematic.
I've definitely definitely do not like the Amazing Spider-Man movies as much as I did when I first saw them. There are some pretty serious scripting issues with both of them.
I think that Amazing Spider-Man 2 is entertaining on that Batman v Superman level, where you watch it and you just think about studio interference and you think about like whose decision was this, because there are so many things that they do, and that film I think is entertaining as a bad film.
Well, BVS is a movie that tries to do way too much at the same time. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a movie that tries to do too many different things at the same time. Halfway through production of the Amazing Spider-Man films, Sony kind of yanked the rug out from underneath Mark Webb and said, no, we're going to do it this way. The original plot for The Amazing Spider-Man was going to involve Peter actually being a genetic experiment, that he had the spider genes dormant in his body until the spider bit him. And they kind of ran with that for most of the first movie. And then well into production of the first movie, Amazing Spider-Man, Sony was like, we're going to make it more like the other Raimi films in terms of the origin. So that's why there's so many weird hanging plot threads of Peter's parents being secret agents, because that was a storyline that was abandoned halfway through the actual making of the film.
Hawk, are you familiar with the doppelganger Spider-Man character, the Peter Parker with like an extra set of arms?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's going to make its way into a movie at some point in the future?
No.
I don't put it past them, man. Okay.
That is a 30-minute story arc for a television show, but it's not. It is not a universe establishing film plot.
Yeah. Would the doppelganger Peter Parker be Parker Peters?
Well, do you know what we're talking about, Ken?
Is he a character in the comics or something?
Basically, there's Spider-Man and there's Man Spider, who's referred to as doppelganger.
It's like Batman and Man Bat.
Yeah, it's Peter Parker, Spider-Man. It's a clone of Peter Parker that has 2 extra arms, because plus the legs, that's 8 arms. No, wait, that's 6. He has 8 arms or something.
He sprouts 2 additional arms.
Yes. It's really dumb. It's comic book shit.
Bill, I can't begin to care. I'm just going to say that.
You didn't grow up with Spider-Man like I did.
And I've never cared.
Anyway.
So that's why I've heard good things about Spider-Man Homecoming.
I like the Clone Saga. I'm sorry.
And I'm perfectly willing to accept another opportunity for them to sell me on Spider-Man.
So I'm going to sell you on Spider-Man. I'm going to avoid as many spoilers as possible. Because you still need to see it. So we were talking about this over the chat, Ken, but it bears re-mentioning, is that this is the byproduct of one of the most interesting multi-studio deals I've ever seen. So basically, Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man. Way back in the day, Marvel sold a lot of their properties out, as we all know, to prevent it falling into bankruptcy. And one of the stipulations of these sales were that if the property goes stagnant for too long of a time, e.g. they don't make anything out of it, then the rights revert back to Marvel. That's why we get all these fucking shitty Fantastic Four movies every few years, because if Fox doesn't make a Fantastic Four film every few years, Marvel gets it back. And obviously with Sony's film division in severely dire straits at this point. I mean, their biggest movie of the year is fucking Emoji Movie, besides Spider-Man. There was a deal done with Marvel. So this deal basically leases the Spider-Man character to Marvel. Marvel gets full creative control of the Spider-Man Homecoming film and of the use of the character in the Marvel films. However, Sony bankrolls the film and sees all of the profits. Marvel will not get any money out of Homecoming. So it's
does Marvel still profit off of the merchandising?
Yes, Marvel still controls merchandising of the
So
Spider-Man
then that's
character.
a good deal for Marvel.
It is, and it's even better because, and maybe the merchandising is different for Homecoming, but even then, even if they didn't get the money off of the merchandising, they have still done what they've been wanting to do since before 2008, which is have Spider-Man in the Marvel universe proper. So even with seeing no money directly from the box office on this, they're doing the fans a huge service by making Spider-Man a character. They're growing their universe.
And they're bailing Sony out.
And they're bailing Sony out. So everybody wins. Tom Holland is contracted for, I think, 6 films: Civil War, Avengers 4 and 5, or 3 and 4, Homecoming, and then 2 more Spider-Man sequels.
Okay.
So Spider-Man Homecoming, again, it kind of goes back into this style of Marvel film where a lot of Marvel films have their own specific flavor to them. You know, Ant-Man was a heist film. Captain America Winter Soldier was a Cold War paranoia type film, so on and so forth. This is the John Hughes high school film. So which is really cool, actually. It's cooler than it sounds.
That's interesting. And my understanding is that it's closer to the comics in that Peter Parker is mostly just an awkward student.
He's an awkward student. He's a high schooler. He goes to a tech school, so there's not really any kind of like major social norms, or like he doesn't get bullied anymore. So the movie actually remember Flash from the I can't remember what his last name is, but the bully Flash from Spider-Man. He kicks Peter around. He's not a bully in that sense this time. He's just kind of he's a very smart kid who's a total dickbag. And so I liked how they changed that dynamic of the bully. It's like, that's not what bullies are like anymore. Bullies are usually people that are smart and they're total shitheads. And there's other exceptions, but still, this is like a John Hughes high school film. Peter Parker is an awkward teenager in high school. You know, he likes this girl. And there's a lot of awkward humor. This is much more of a low-key character drama comedy than it is an action film. In fact, the action is quite light.
Subdued.
For most of there are not really any major action set pieces. There's no giant city getting his asshole torn out at the end of the film. The stakes are marginally low for this movie. I mean, they have a potential to get bigger, but the focus is really on Peter Parker and his development in his early days as Spider-Man.
Where does this fit in the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, by the way?
I can give you a little bit of background on the story. It'll spoil the first 5 minutes of it, though. Does that matter to you?
You don't need to go into too much detail. Just tell me if does it take place in current times within the MCU or not?
Yes.
Okay.
It does, because there's a scene where Peter Parker is watching. It turns out he filmed himself fighting at the airport.
Oh, okay.
So he's watching that video in class on his computer.
Civil War. Okay.
It is post Civil War. It was funny because originally I had thought it was pre-Civil War before it come out, but then that scene was in there, and so it's a fun movie. It's got some great comedy and some really fantastic human moments. They kind of tease with they kind of play with the whole, Spider-Man can't be both Spider-Man and Peter Parker with a normal life, but they kind of keep it a little bit light, and then the plot conveniently resolves that, without spoiling anything. Michael Keaton as the Vulture was really, really good. This definitely breaks the trend of Marvel villains in that Vulture is an interesting villain with interesting, clear-cut motivations that make sense for his character and for the universe.
And it's a compelling character in general.
What about Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
He was fine. I thought everything about him was a little bit abrupt, though.
I think in the third act it fell apart, but the first 2 acts, I think that they defined it.
I think my primary criticism about the Kurt Russell character in Guardians is I almost feel like that should have been a story arc they should have built up to over a few different movies. Like have him meet his father in this movie and start to develop a relationship, and maybe by the end of the film have some sort of hint of things to come.
That would have been
not to
interesting.
mention, it felt very inorganic to Kurt Russell's character to be like, spoiler alert, by the way, to be like, hey, also I killed your mom. And it just kind of came out of nowhere when the whole movie had been setting up this father-son relationship. I mean, I would not tell my son that I killed his mother, you know.
Well, like I said, I think it really worked in the first 2 acts, and then the third act they kind of dropped the ball with the writing. But And
that's everything. That's Michael Keaton as Vulture in Homecoming is a better developed, more interesting villain than Kurt Russell in Guardians 2. I'm sorry. I think Guardians 2 is a better film, but as far as Marvel villains, Vulture stands up there with Loki. In terms of development and motivations, like, and there's an interesting twist later on in the film, which I won't say what it is, obviously, but it really there's that, and then another point later on in the movie that really adds some nuance to his character that I really, really liked.
I want to see this movie.
It's a good film. Again, it's well paced. There's not a lot of action. The biggest action set piece is towards the end, and it's not. Again, it doesn't have to do with a city in danger or anything. I
got a pretty non-spoiler question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Does this film have the classic Spider-Man does whatever a spider can? How do they work that into this movie? Is that
Michael Giacchino? I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but the composer for the film, he did an orchestral version of that to play over the Marvel Studios logo crawl that precedes the movie.
Oh, is that it? Is that the only time it appears?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I thought the overall score was really forgettable for this. Like, even more so. I mean, it's kind of like the joke. It's like, oh, Marvel scores aren't very good. They all sound the same. But I'm really hard pressed.
They do.
I don't remember anything about the score in this movie. Like Spider-Man's theme, like for the character, like it didn't stand out to me. I really.
Going back to the Sam Raimi pictures, Danny Elfman's score for those films are really fucking.
Oh yeah, Danny Elfman fucking killed it, and even.
Literally,
literally
the only Marvel Cinematic Universe like theme that I can, off the top of my head, conjure is the Avengers main theme.
I think there are some great little nuggets of score in Winter Soldier.
Yep. Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange has some great little. Doctor Strange, though, what I remember most about that musically is the pop songs they would use.
Yeah.
See, I'm just going off the top of my head. The only thing, like, from a basic perspective of hummability, I can, if I wanted to, I could hum the Avengers theme right off the top of my head. But
do me a favor, hum John Williams' Superman score for me right now.
Superman.
Okay, now do the Indiana Jones.
Dun. They're
very similar.
I don't know.
They're
I'm not saying that they're not indistinguishable, but they are similar John Williams scores, and they
both
sound great.
Similar. You know what sounds similar to the Superman score is Hans Zimmer's Amazing Spider-Man 2 theme. When that came out, I was like, "That's fucking Superman. Spider-Man is not Superman."
The fact is, two scores from the same composer from John Williams, like amongst Indiana Jones and everything. He just has a distinctive style.
He does.
Oh yeah.
As do all of them.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to badmouth John Williams here. I just think that the Superman and Indiana Jones themes are very similar.
I mean, there's elements, of course, and yeah.
So anyway,
yes.
Just some other thoughts on Spider-Man: Homecoming. Tony Stark is in it, but not really. I mean, he's in, I would say, easily less than 10 minutes of the film overall.
I'm glad about that.
That is very reassuring because
they use him when they need him, but they don't over.
It's a good and a bad thing, because here's the thing: is that a lot of the times Tony Stark is not talking to Peter face to face, and other times when Peter needs to tell someone something or needs to communicate with Stark, Jon Favreau as Happy is kind of like the conduit. Oh, you know, he's like, hey, you want something, call Happy, you know. And Happy kind of fucking hates Peter. He doesn't like him at all.
He thinks he's a little shit.
Yeah, exactly. Why is this shithead bothering me all the time?
Right.
But then there's one scene where Tony and Peter are talking face to face, and it is really fucking obvious that they are not in the same scene together.
Oh,
yeah. Robert Downey Jr. is very clearly against a CGI New York skyline.
It's probably in his contract that Robert Downey Jr. does most of his scenes from blue screen now.
Probably, yeah. Well, there's even they didn't even. It's almost like they didn't even try, because on the parts where, on the shots where they're looking at Tom Holland as Peter, and you have Robert Downey Jr.'s body double standing there, over his shoulder, you can see a light source on his shoulder. And then when the camera switches back to look at Robert Downey Jr., there's no light on him at all. He's just against a green screen. It just really jarring.
This is interesting. You're talking about green screens and rooftops. Based on what I've seen of the trailers for this film, you're referring to the scene where Tony Stark says, "I'm taking the suit away." Is that what you're talking about?
That scene, exactly.
Think about The Room and the rooftop scenes in The Room.
You're tearing me apart, Peter. Let's see. There are a couple of other things they do that are really interesting in terms of the Marvel Universe. Like, they're changing a couple things, adjusting things here and there, really making it kind of different, but still very Spider-Man.
I did see the opening scene to this film, which is Michael Keaton's character was basically on a cleanup crew for the aftermath of the first Avengers movie. Am I right?
Yeah, but don't say anything more, because that kind of really goes into the character motivations.
This is the opening scene of the film.
It is, but that scene really sets the groundwork for everything about Vulture.
Okay.
So it's better to leave that untouched, because experiencing his character is kind of great. I mean, he's still a standard comic book villain, but you can really tell that Marvel thought about it, like, we need to make a character that kind of works for Peter Parker, like somebody that's something that he can take on and it fits in the thematic framework of this film.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions.
So you mean he didn't just want to turn everyone into lizards?
No, He didn't want to turn anybody into lizards. The Shocker is in this very briefly. That was kind of cool. He was in the trailer.
Herman, what's his name? Herman something.
What?
The Shocker's real name is Herman something.
They never named him that I remember. You could tell he was wearing the suit, and he didn't shoot the beams out of his hands. He just had a device that allowed him to punch people really hard. And at one point the Vulture gives him shit for it. He's like, "You're always calling yourself the Shocker." "Ooh, I'm the Shocker. I shock people."
The Shockmaster.
Like, yeah, it's funny because the Vulture totally calls this guy out on his bullshit for a stupid ass name like the Shocker.
The pink one in the stink.
Yeah.
The dank one in the stank.
Oh,
did they?
I fucking hate that. What?
Have they recast Jonah Jameson, or are they going to bring J.K. Simmons? I know you don't have the answer to the latter, but is Jameson in this movie?
No, this is way before Peter gets a job at the Bugle. He's still in high school, and he ostensibly will be for the duration of the Spider-Man Marvel films, as it stands with Tom Holland's contract.
Okay, well,
does that make sense?
I would love if Just Kidding Simmons was brought in to reprise his role, because that's one thing I do remember.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is I don't think they should recast Jameson. Just bring back J.K. Simmons.
Really weird, though.
It's fine. Don't acknowledge it. Just have him be there. It's fine.
But now J.K. Simmons is he's Commissioner Gordon in Justice League.
So
I don't care about that.
I don't know. It's just weird.
Are you saying that if J.K. Simmons
let me ask you this:
movies would be some sort of incestuous relationship or something?
Yeah, that's. But Hawk, I do want to ask you though, if you were in charge, if you had to recast Jameson, who would you go with? If you can't pick J.K. Simmons, who do you cast in this role?
What's his name? The bad guy from Avatar and Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe. Avatar.
Stephen Lang.
Oh,
he could do it.
Stephen Lang, yeah.
I thought you were gonna say
Stephen Lang is actually that's a brilliant choice.
Thank you.
Much like J.K. Simmons, he's a very eccentric performer. He could do it.
I thought you were gonna say Walton Goggins.
Oh man, I would fucking kill somebody to see Walton Goggins play Jonah Jameson.
Sure,
That would be cool, right? Yeah, that could work. Oh shit,
a Southern Fried J. Jonah Jameson.
we're on to something.
Just, or take his vice principal's character and just make him effeminate too.
So how
Just that really flamboyant, angry Southern J. Jonah Jameson.
So how is Tom Holland in this movie?
He's great. He is so. I mean, he's really good. He really kind of has this youthful energy. Like the Spider-Man's big thing in this movie is that he wants to be an Avenger. He got on a super intense contact high with being with the Avengers at the airport, and now he's always like, hey, you know, put me in, Iron Man. Like, tell me when the next mission is. I'll be there.
Put me in, Coach. I'm ready to play.
Put me in, Coach. Happy. There's a scene where he texts Happy. He's like, Happy, I'm off at 2:45. Just call me for the next mission. It's Peter. Peter Parker, by the way. And
what a career this guy's had. I mean, directing Fright Night. He was a co-writer on Class of 1984. He worked on The Langoliers. What a career.
Who?
Jon Favreau? Is that who you're talking about?
I'm talking about Tom Holland. I'm talking about two separate people. The guy that directed Fright Night is also named Tom Holland. I was making a joke. You kind of ruined it by making me
thinking for a moment that you thought that Jon Favreau had something to do with The Langoliers, and I was like,
yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
I almost had to Google that.
No. The director of Fright Night had something to do with The Langoliers.
Okay. So now I recently saw Tom Holland in. He actually plays the son of. Well, I'm going to bring this up just because. Hawk, you had issues with the fact that Charlie Hunnam and Robert Pattinson were in The Lost City of Z, and you know, as you know, I gave that movie a very, very, very positive review. Tom Holland plays his son in the movie. He shows up at different age points, but about 2/3 into the movie, Tom Holland appears as as Jack Fawcett, the son of Hunnam's character, and it's a really good performance. You really get the feeling of a aging son who's starting to turn against his father's choices to essentially abandon the family every few years to go to the jungle.
Yeah, I still need to watch that. I mean, I've moved on from the fact that they're in this movie. Like, I thought Robert Pattinson was good in Cosmopolis. I thought that I was able to move past my general dislike for Charlie Hunnam after King Arthur.
Okay. Well, that's good. So, yeah, Lost City of Z, definitely recommend you see it. And but that is what sold me on Tom Holland as an actor.
Is that still your favorite film of the year, Lost City of Z?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, Tom Holland is great. Again, like he really wants to be Spider-Man and be with the Avengers in this. And a lot of it, you know, Tony is like, no, you got. Why can't you just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? He drops the line.
Yeah.
And you know,
in all the trailers,
Peter wants to grow up faster than that. It's kind of awesome. Like they kind of juxtapose. You know, every teenager wants to grow up and be an adult. Like at one point in this movie, a bunch of kids from this high school go to Washington D.C. to compete in a decathlon, except for nerds and questions and stuff, like the trivia, but with science. And it's about kids that want to grow up faster than they are growing up and how they shouldn't be wanting that so much. And they really it's kind of hand-in-hand allegory with Peter Parker wanting to be full-fledged Spider-Man instead of friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Spider-Man is powerful enough of a superhero that he can contend on the world stage, technically, but really he should be down in the trenches with like the
Defenders.
with the Netflix Netflix Avengers, the Defenders.
Well, there are other great character moments too. Like there's a montage of him just doing friendly neighborhood Spider-Man things, and there's a guy trying to get into his car or trying to break into a car, and Spider-Man webs his hand to the car and smacks his face again. It's like it's rude to try to steal cars. And the alarm goes off on the car, and the guy's like, "This is my car. I'm trying to get into it." And then with the car alarm going off, everybody down the block is looking out of the windows like, "Turn that shit off!" And like, it's too loud. And like, he kind of just makes one simple mistake, and everybody's pissed off for a minute. It was a little throwaway aside, but it showed Spider-Man as kind of a flawed character, but not in the sense of, you know, Tobey Maguire making poor relationship choices. It's, you know, this kid who's has so much power, and then they don't use the "with great power comes great responsibility," nor do they even mention Uncle Ben in this film or any of this. None of his origin is in there. Like
they don't.
Everyone knows his origin.
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't
exactly.
They don't need to, and that line has been quoted to death at this point.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that the movie still establishes that motif through these little asides, like, you know, he is this kid that has tons of power, but he needs to know how to use it. He needs to be effective in how he uses it. And
you're saying that they show and not tell.
Yes, in the best way. I'm seriously impressed with this film as a character piece. If you go in expecting a Marvel tentpole blockbuster, you will be disappointed because that's not what this movie is.
Well, I honestly am sick of just tentpole movies coming out every 5 months. So I want to see something that goes deeper into character.
And this one is absolutely going to fit the bill for you, I think.
All right. Well, I will see that as soon as I can.
I have one major.
As the doctor releases me out of this friggin' prison.
You have one more question, Bill?
Yes, I have a major gripe that I would like to ask you about because you've now seen the film.
Okay.
My main concern going into this is that they gave way too much plot away in the trailers because I feel like I know the plot of the movie beat for beat.
Tell me a little bit of what you understand the film's plot to be, and I'll tell you how right you are, but I will not correct you.
Okay. Well, it starts after Civil War, so he has the suit that Tony Stark gave him, and he's going around doing his thing, being Spider-Man. Tony Stark has installed some kind of like child privacy system.
Don't word it like that.
What did they call it in the film? Training Wheels program?
Training Wheels protocol, yeah.
Yeah, and his nerd friend figures out how to override that, and they override that. And then he goes off and does his thing. And then I don't know what happens, but something happens that makes Tony Stark mad at him. And he says, I'm taking this away. And then the whole third act of the film is him saving the day with just his powers and what he has at his disposal. He puts on the old suit. This is all in the trailer. And I was really kind of bummed that they like went over the whole plot in the trailer.
You got a lot of that right, but you're really only you're
well, that's the thing. I'm not acting like it gave away the entire film. It just gave away sort of
the basic premise.
Yeah.
I mean, you basically outlined the major bullet points of acts 1, 2, and 3, but there's a lot more that happens kind of underneath that. That again, this is a character film, so those provide the framework in which these characters operate, and then the way that they kind of do the new suit, the high-tech suit, there's some other character stuff with that I thought was really cool. Again, part of the show don't tell part type thing. So don't consider that a gripe because yes, you're partly right about that being the overarching plot, but there is so much more. This is just the support for the characters to work. It's not what drives the film.
That's what I figured. I was just really put off by the fact that they really laid out the plot in that first trailer.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sony was in charge of marketing, as far as I know, and that's why that's the case.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, I think we've summarized that movie significantly, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next movie on our list. And what we're going to talk about is this is the first of a couple of movies that Hawk and I have mutually agreed to watch. So we're going to talk about a television mockumentary from the mid 1970s, 1978 specifically, called The Rutholes. All You Need Is Cash.
This is a funny movie. It kind of didn't have a lot of structure. Was my only problem with it.
We can get into that, but I would like to kind of present how I discovered this and sort of because I was a big Beatles fan as a teenager, like when I was in high school, and also a Monty Python fan. And I had heard of this, and I had to actually buy this on DVD off of Amazon because at the time there was no other way to see it.
Right. I lucked out when I got into this this phase. I discovered it originally in college. There was a VHS tape in their music section at this rental store.
Ah, okay. Look at you.
Yeah.
No, I had to buy this on DVD, and I was not aware of Neil Innes. I mean, getting into this film is what pushed me to get into the Bonzo Dog Band, recognize Neil Innes's work with Monty Python, and just I completely understand where you're coming from, Hawk, when you say like it's hit and miss. It has its ups and downs, but like when I was 16 years old, this was the funniest goddamn thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say about All You Need Is Cash is if you've seen, I'm someone who's seen a ton of documentaries about the Beatles.
I've only seen a few, but I will say this: before I watched this, I got Imagine John Lennon on DVD, and despite the fact that came out after the Ruddles, they addressed some of the same shit in it.
Oh yeah, well, every documentary on the Beatles has the ebbs and flows that this documentary follows, and it's almost shocking. Like if you've seen the 8-part Beatles anthology series, which
was produced after this.
Oh yeah, years after this. It's amazing how many beats that documentary touches on, that this touches on, and of course parodies. And there were many other Beatles documentaries over the years, but what I love about it is how spot on they get it. This movie, for those who don't know, in the 1960s, there was this band once known as the Beatles, but well, anyway, the Ruddles was created as basically just a straight up parody and pastiche of the Beatles. It was put together by Eric Idle and Neil Innes. Eric Idle, of course, formerly of Monty Python, and Neil Innes, who had worked with Eric Idle prior to Monty Python in his band, the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. They appeared on a show Eric Idle was on called Do Not Adjust Your Set.
Do Not Adjust Your Set. That's what it's called.
And Innes is Eric Idle was always the most musical member of Monty Python. He wrote most of the best known songs, like "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life."
Always look on the bright side of life.
And Neil Innes on his side, very talented.
He did the Sir Robin. Yes. Every time I have to explain to someone who knows of Monty Python who Neil Innes is, I always say he's the guy that sang the Sir Robin song.
Yes, and wrote it.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah. But Neil Innes actually wrote an entire score for Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and the reason why
that's unfortunate.
The reason they rejected it is because they were looking for something much more epic in scale to contrast the film's low budget.
Which I understand. Yeah, I understand.
And just Innes, they couldn't afford to give Innes a full orchestra. Now, apparently, you can find bootlegs of, and actually, I think Innes may have released the score he did for it. It'd be interesting to hear it in full, but still, he did a lot of music stuff. In the last season of Monty Python, Flying Circus, he actually wrote songs for a few episodes, and he appeared in a few sketches and co-wrote some sketches.
I'm a big Neil Innes fan, so
right. So anyway,
I have a bias to this project going in.
And the Bonzo Dog Band is they are probably one of the earliest examples of comedy rock.
I've heard a lot of people compare them to Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
Certainly,
and
there's that comparison can be made.
And I'm a big fan of them as well. But like once you get to like Uncle Meat, give me the Bonzos. Give me structure. Give me melody. Give me songwriting.
Well, here's the thing. Frank Zappa is not all comedy.
No.
Versus Bonzo Dog is pretty much all comedy.
Have you ever heard their track Slush, where it's like this mellow music and this dude just laughing like a maniac?
Yes. Hawk, have you heard any of the Bonzo Dog Band music?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm a big fan. I love them. We've established that.
So that brings us to the Ruddles. The Ruddles actually came from there was a TV series that Eric Idle was involved with
Rutland Weekend Television, is that the title?
Yes, Rutland Weekend Television. And Rutland Weekend Television was actually a parody of the it was basically a parody of local television programming in Great Britain at the time.
Just the most accessible comedy that we have to offer.
Yeah, for it doesn't translate quite as well to our U.S. audiences unless you are familiar with British sensibilities. Like if you're someone who's marathon through Monty Python, you probably will understand most of the humor in Rutland Weekend Television. So what happened was the Ruddles came from an episode where basically it was sort of like almost a testing ground for what would become the full Ruddles film, where they, it was a series of sketches that told the story of the town of Rutland's biggest rock band. And anyway, so this documentary, as I mentioned, as it works as a pastiche of the Beatles' history, it goes through and hits on a lot of points, and it's full of music that Neil Innes and Eric Idle worked on, designed it specifically to sound like a song that the Beatles could have made, but without it necessarily. None of the songs that the Ruddles have directly parody just one song. They parody a multitude, and it's kind of fascinating how he kind of blends things together, to the point where in some instances you might have a song where 4 or 5 different Beatles songs are parodied within one single song.
Right. My favorite one was "Ouch."
Yes.
Ouch is oh my God. And not just from a comedy perspective, like that is such a perfect recreation of the Help track.
It is, and I also like the animated Yellow Submarine style sequence.
Oh, Cheese and Onions! I have shown
where at the end they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna get out of here," and he's like, "Yeah, I should do that too." And then the animated characters just leave the frame.
Yes,
I was hanging with some friends who were tripping, and I wanted to show them Yellow Submarine, and I didn't have a copy of it, so I grabbed my DVD of the Ruddles, and I said, "Here, watch Cheese and Onions for 5 minutes."
Hey, that works, and I think
it totally fucking did the job.
And it reminded me of the scene in Walk Hard where he does ask.
Oh yeah, the trip out. Yeah, the
Beatles, and they have a bad trip.
Yeah, that's a complete Yellow Submarine tribute in that.
And I think it's worth noting that the Ruddles was a mockumentary, a rock mockumentary that came out before This Is Spinal Tap. And this is really where the concept of parodying a rock band kind of came from.
I could be wrong. Ken correct me here if I'm wrong, but Lorne Michaels produced this, right? Like he provided the finances.
He's not listed as a producer, but his production company backed the movie, and that's actually partially the reason why basically the entire original SNL Not Ready for Primetime Players cast appears in this movie at one point or another. You have cameos from everyone from Bill Murray to
John Belushi,
Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, and then of course George Harrison himself cameos in the movie in a very brief moment.
Not the first time he's worked with Eric Idle.
Right, or Neil Innes. And it's worth noting that George Harrison spirited this project along. He actually helped advise Neil Innes on how to capture the Beatles' essence. And reportedly, Paul McCartney did not like this when it came out until Linda convinced him that it was funny.
I have seen, on the flip side of that, referring to John Lennon, I've seen people claim like John Lennon and Yoko watched this the night it aired, and they were both in stitches.
Yeah. I find it fascinating. And of course, Harrison, I'm not surprised Harrison backed this, because Harrison, he financially backed a lot of Monty Python. Monty Python, The Life of Brian would not exist if George Harrison hadn't essentially hocked his house for them. That is like the ultimate sign of a true patron of the arts.
Meanwhile, in the 1970s, Bill Cosby helped fund the Sweetbacks badass song.
He gave him like $5 million.
Yeah. So I'm saying it's kind of like that. It's like you wouldn't have things like that if it weren't for these.
You
people
wouldn't have the whole
connections
blaxploitation movement if not for that. Really.
Yeah.
But what the Ruddles excels in is in nailing the feel of the Beatles, without making it feel like they're not. It's very much a loving tribute, while also a wonderful satire. And I love especially the multiple jokes about, especially towards the beginning when they're discovered by their soon-to-be manager Leggy Mountbatten, which is the most British name ever.
All I could notice was the trousers were very tight.
Exactly. And that's a running joke throughout. And of course, damn it, Mick Jagger appears and he says the same thing.
Can I say this? I
What?
think that the Mick Jagger interview and the Paul Simon interview, I think they're really talking about the Beatles and they just changed the names.
I think you're right because
I think
because where they ask a question of Mick Jagger and there's a very obviously intentional sloppy cut to Mick Jagger, like they're not in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about that is, what's the name of the song, Ken, that Ringo wrote that the Rolling Stones covered? I love a baby, I want to be a man.
Yeah, I want to be your man. I don't think Ringo wrote that though.
No, well, he sings it. He sings on the Beatles version of the track.
Yeah.
They wrote that and tried to sell it to the Rolling Stones, and Mick Jagger tells a very similar story to that and changes up the names. He says, Barry and Stig and Ron.
I just looked it up, and actually Mick Jagger did, in fact, he was in on the joke. These were interviews that were done for the movie.
Yeah, I feel like there's more truth regarding the Beatles in these interviews than they would like to admit.
Well, that's the thing. Mick Jagger, for instance, when I'm reading here, Mick Jagger was indicating that he was literally repeating some things. He was repeating things he had said about the Beatles in previous interviews, but tailoring it for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he did outtakes too. They're on the DVD. So yeah, I guess that's a fun idea, Bill. But I guess we're wrong.
I don't know. I refuse to believe that it's not wrong.
No, there are some things in here that were. For instance, Ed Sullivan. It's very obvious when Ed Sullivan is introducing the Ruddles that they dub in Ruddles by using a voice sound alike.
Yeah,
but this is what I like about this movie is it's very short and it gets in, it makes its jokes and it gets out. I know that you said you had some issues with the pacing. Tell me about that a little bit.
I think I was expecting a different type of movie. I was expecting more of a Spinal Tap film rather than a straight
like a parody of a television
style.
Documentary?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think at that point I was like, I kind of just went from thing to thing, and that was it. There was not really a coherent through line in it. And then once I figured out what it was doing and how it was structured, I was kind of like, okay, now that I know what it's doing, I'm fine. But when the first 20 minutes, I was like, I'm not really sure what I'm watching here.
I can see where you're coming from on that, and actually, part of the humor of the television documentary parody of it is Eric Idle's character as the boring news guy who's always making ridiculous comments about the Ruddles and walking down streets and things like that.
Running after the camera.
Yes, this was conceived because Eric Idle wanted to make a film specifically about the most boring documentary interviewer ever. That's what he set out to do, and then he and Neil Innes came up with the Ruddles idea instead, and they sort of they moved his character into this movie.
I have two questions. Well, no, yes. I have one thing to say, and I have a question. Mm-hmm. But when I first watched this movie back, goddamn, probably like 10 years ago now, I put it on, and they do that thing in the beginning where there's like text running down the screen and they're explaining who the Ruddles are. But if you pay attention, the Ruddles are like getting into one car, going out the other car,
Yes.
getting into another car. Like, oh my God, that was so fun. And then the Eric Idle narrator bit where he is literally chasing after the truck with the camera in it.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I was sold. I was completely sold. But my question is, of the soundtrack, of all the songs that they did, what are your favorites? I guess Hawk, you had already said "ouch," but is that your favorite?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one.
I would say from this movie specifically, because they actually have recorded more than just this in terms of Ruddles songs.
I want to get into that too, but
Right.
what is your
I think
favorite
that
song?
Part of what made "Ouch" my favorite is how during one of the chorus sequences, they're dropping rocks on the band members' heads as they're saying
Ouch! Ouch!
Yeah.
Ouch!
That's what totally did it for me.
My favorite is actually "I Must Be in Love."
That's a really good one.
I like that because it sounds it's a perfect pastiche of the early Beatles sound, while at the same time it does not sound like a direct parody of any specific Beatles song, just like the general Beatles sound. And when they say love, they really push the Liverpool accent as far as possible. I must be in love.
Love. Yeah. I have actually been really hooked on Get Up and Go lately.
Get Up and Go is great as a direct parody of
Get Back.
Yeah.
Which I've been hooked on Get Up and Go lately. I've been listening to it a lot. But I do want to let you both know that there is a sequel to this. It's called The Ruddles 2 Can't Buy Me Lunch.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
Don't waste your time on it.
I saw it, and I agree. Basically what happened was they took outtakes from the original film and then filmed a few new scenes. It's really not
yeah.
I hate when they do that.
It's a load of trash. Yeah. And I had actually spent a long time trying to get a copy of it. And then when I did, I was like, what have I done?
I saw it on VH1 Classic like 10 years ago.
Lucky you. I bought the fucking DVD and then threw it in the trash because I hated it.
Yeah. Now what is worth it, however, is in the mid 90s, the Ruddles produced a second album that was a parody of the Beatles anthology series,
Archaeology.
The Ruddles Archaeology, and it actually some of the songs, I think Hawk, you'll love it. Some of these songs include Major Happy's Up and Coming Once Upon a Good Time Band.
That's a good song. That is a good song.
There's a song called Shangri-La, that's
a good one.
Shangri-La is the one I was talking about when I was talking about multiple pastiches. Shangri-La is a 7-minute long song that parodies A Day in the Life, Hey Jude, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds, The Magical Mystery Tour, All You Need Is Love, and Oasis song Whatever.
Well,
so yeah, in just one song they just put that in. Now the Oasis reference was actually, it's worth noting that Neil Innes actually sued Oasis because Oasis referenced the Oasis song Whatever directly references their song How Sweet to Be an Idiot. Yeah. So that was an intentional kind of fuck you to them.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then there's a song called Back in 64 that's a parody of When I'm 64.
They're all good. I'm not big on the archaeology stuff, the Ruddle stuff past the TV movie soundtrack, but
well, the TV movie soundtrack is the best, but archaeology, I would say
they're good. Yeah,
archaeology there's 16 songs on the CD, and I would say at least half of them are really solid, and the rest are perfectly listenable.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think that's enough talking about the Ruddles. Next, what we'll do is, I know, Bill, you wanted to talk about Glow.
You
got the
Glow. I didn't get a
Glow.
chance to watch it.
You are the last dragon.
You possess the power of the Glow.
Yep.
All right, so tell us about the TV show Glow.
So GLOW stands for Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, which was an actual TV program that ran back in the 1980s, before my time, before I presume the time of a lot of people that have watched this show. And the thing is that it is not a direct adaptation of that. They take a lot of liberties, and in fact, they take all the liberties. This is not anywhere near a direct adaptation. It's a
fictionalized representation.
It's a reimagining, so to speak. And having said that, maybe not gritty, but I think that it works. I really think that it works. The way that they present it, the way that they, if you are going into this as a fan of wrestling, you're not going to get like a whole lot out of it. It's more character based and what the characters are going through and this and that, and it's light on the wrestling terms. Like in fact, maybe that's more inviting for people that aren't into wrestling, because I think you can, any background, you can watch this and enjoy it. It is a good little story from start to finish. Mm-hmm. It stars Allison Brie, who played Annie on Community, and is Dave Franco's wife in IRL. And she is an actress, and she is struggling to get work. She gets a call from her agent who says, go down to this gym. I got a job for you. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. And the job is professional wrestling. And initially, Mark Maron comes out. Mark Maron is sort of the grizzled, old cigar-smoking, angry manager who is putting all this together. Fantastic in the role, by the way. If you are a Mark Maron fan, this series is worth watching.
That's the main thing that attracts me to it, that makes me want to go watch it.
Love Mark Maron.
If you are a fan of Mark Maron, I think you will get through this series regardless of how you feel about everything else going on, because he brings it. He brings it in a way that he doesn't usually bring it, because he's not playing himself, which he's been doing for the past, God knows, 3 or 4 years at this point,
or a version of himself. Yeah.
He plays a character. He plays a character that is separate from himself, and he is fantastic in it. If you're a Mark Maron fan, I highly recommend just going into it for that. But even on top of that, like, the actresses are fantastic. They cameos in this too, and they're great. For a wrestling fan, it's fun. For a non-wrestling fan, it's fun. It's but they do change a lot from what actually happened, because Netflix does, concurrent to this, host a documentary about the actual Ladies of GLOW, and that's its own interesting story. That's worth watching, and that tells its own story. I really like the TV show because it does its own thing, and it establishes characters that stand on their own. And
you like wrestling. It tells a story within its own context. That
I'll give you a good example of like why I think this works on its own as its own story. So Allison Brie's character, in the first episode, she's going through her own thing. She's struggling as an actress, and she has a friend who used to be an actress and has kind of like, she has a kid now, and she's like, I don't want to be an actress anymore. I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. Allison Brie fucks her husband.
Huh.
And at Allison Brie's wrestling audition, this girl shows up and knows that she fucked her husband, and she comes in and they fucking wrestle, and they're like screaming at each other about, you fucked my man and this and that. And you're like, everybody that's there, including Mark Maron, thinks that she set this up for her audition.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, this girl went all the way for this, and she gets hired because of that. And that's what I'm saying is, like, that's the kind of twist and turns.
That's an interesting introduction. I'm actually, that makes me more interested.
I really enjoyed this series. Now, having said that, this is from the writing staff of Orange is the New Black, which that is also the writing. It has some people from the writing staff of the show Weeds. I watch Weeds. I don't watch Orange is the New Black. So
I dislike both of those shows.
The New Black.
You dislike Weeds?
Weeds is okay. I'm not a big fan.
I really like the first 5 seasons of Weeds.
Well, I have not seen Orange Is the New Black before, but
Oranges, plural.
that was a running joke for a while on the Scott Ackerman's Comedy Bang Bang, is he would only refer to it as Oranges, the New Black. Anyway,
I think you should give Glow a chance because it honestly surprised me. I had a lot of fun with it, and I felt the heart, I felt the passion, I felt like this existed for a reason. There were pillars holding this up of people wanted to make this, you know what I mean? It wasn't just make a series about ladies wrestlers. It was like they actually put some thought into this, and it turned out really well.
So it has the feeling of a passion project.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that it turned out very well. The cast is fantastic. Like I said, Mark Maron alone, I think if you are a big Mark Maron guy, his stuff will pull you through, even if you're not liking the other stuff. But the other stuff is absolutely fantastic.
Okay, I will give Glow a look the next opportunity I have to get into a TV series. And now, Hawk, I know you recently had a chance to watch the film The Secret Life of Pets from last year.
Yeah.
If you want to touch on that
the other day and watched it.
I got a Facebook message from Hawk Ripjaw last night that said, "You need to get high and watch The Secret Life of Pets." And I was like, "What? I need to do what?"
I had a feeling that Hawk was probably under the influence when he watched it, because he sent me no less than 2 separate messages telling me to watch The Secret Life of Pets. I'm assuming the first
to be
did
fair,
not remember that he told me how much he liked it.
To be fair, the first time was at least 24 hours prior in the group chat, and the second one was it to you personally.
Yeah.
Right.
I forgot, you know.
I commented and talked to you about it in the group chat, so we had a direct.
Well, I went back and looked through it, and you had said very briefly, "He's like, yeah, I heard that it was good, nothing bad about it, but not really anything amazing." But anyway, yeah, no, it's fine, honestly. Like I think it's on Netflix now too. But it's Louis C.K. plays this dog, and his owner leaves every day, and he doesn't know why. And there's a lot of like allegories, like, look how funny that is. You know, the pets think that it's an eternity when we're gone.
The pets kind are of like real people.
Yeah, well,
no, I'm being.
There is actually, they kind of get around that in like, the dog is yelling at his owner, and then it cuts to her looking at him, and he's just barking. So they don't really do that whole thing like, oh, they talk when we're not around, and then at one point they actually do talk and freak the shit out of a human. It basically, they leave the house, or sorry, the owner leaves and she comes back with a new dog named Duke, and the Louis C.K.'s character hates him, and then they leave the house, they get taken to the pound, and they got to find their way back home. Very, very basic story. But it's it's just kind of a pleasant little background noise movie. Honestly, the animation is really pleasant, and there's a lot of texture to it. It wasn't that funny. I didn't really laugh that much, although there is one really wacky scene with a bunch of dancing anthropomorphic sausages in a sausage factory.
Which I commented to you earlier. Wow, if only there was a movie about anthropomorphic sausages that came out within the last 2 years.
Well, what you said is that you basically said that's just kind of the norm now. Like, it's not anything wacky anymore.
I'm getting dead silence.
You what?
Dead silence?
What about dead silence?
Well, when I said right after I finished saying that, there was no response whatsoever.
Really? I responded.
Oh, well, the sound on your side must have cut off for a second then. Sorry.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Facebook. No, you responded. You had said something about that, like, that just isn't surprising anymore because movies do that. And I was like, yeah, usually, but in this movie, it came out so far out of left field, it was just kind of wacky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Right, which don't get me wrong. I do think that it's the way you described it sounded pretty funny. So
yeah, no, the scene was funny. I laughed. The movie itself, it's fine. It's good to put on for, just something to waste time or have background noise for 90 minutes. I honestly liked it a lot more than I thought. I saw the trailer and I was like, come on, man. Pets. And watched it, and it's fine. It's decent. There's not really a lot that happens in terms of the character development or arcs or the actual story itself, but it's just a nice little thing. I mean, it's Illumination Entertainment, which did Despicable Me and whatnot. Same producer.
They did Despicable Me. They did the Lorax.
Yep.
Is that it? Did they do anything else?
Yeah, I just can't remember.
Minions movie.
Well, the Minions, that's under that's under the Despicable Me umbrella. So,
right.
There was like one other thing I think they did. I'm looking it up right now.
I want to know. I want to know. Hop. Oh my God! Sing. Oh boy!
And there's going to be at the end of 2018 a new animated Grinch movie.
Because these guys have the Dr. Seuss rights, apparently.
Oh, shit. There's a Cat in the Hat coming out?
Yes. It's going to be CG.
But when are they going to do the Butter Battle book? God damn it.
Ralph Bakshi did that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, like, now.
That's cool. Ken. It's cool that Ralph Bakshi did a Dr. Seuss adaptation.
Yes, it is cool, and it's a half-hour special. Though I'm talking about like a feature movie, because I would love to see the.
Is that the kind of story that can stretch to feature length? It's the same reason we don't have a.
It's a Cold War era paranoia thriller under the guise of Dr. Seuss.
God, but that's what you need Ralph Bakshi to direct. That's
right.
I haven't even watched that special.
Or Yertle the Turtle, the best book about turtle stacking there is.
I feel like if they tried to do a Yertle the Turtle movie, it would turn too much like Horton.
Yeah. Well, the fact is, these
Horton
here's shorts to begin with. You can't extend any of them into a feature length.
Horton Hears a Who felt like Dr. Seuss Family Guy.
I liked Horton Hears a Who.
I didn't hate it, but it felt like Dr. Seuss Family Guy, where it's like we have this thread of Dr. Seuss, but then we're going to cut away to this and that and this and that, and then cut back, and then cut back.
That movie was like pre-Phil Lord, Chris Miller style animation, but with that same vein.
Yeah.
It was Steve Martino and Jimmy Hayward, and unfortunately, those guys went on to make Jonah Hex.
It wanted to be like a Lego movie kind of thing. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Lego movie.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from with that comparison.
And then after Jonah Hex, they made Freebirds.
I haven't seen that.
Neither have I, although this girl I was seeing at the time when it was about to come out, she thought it looked really funny. So we almost went, we almost went and saw it, but then then what?
No, I was just joking. I said, so that's why you're not seeing each other anymore.
No, I would have been fine with seeing it. But I probably won't. But it looked okay. The Secret Life of Pets. It's there's not much to it, but it's just one of those kind of forgettable in the moment movies that you just see like, hey, that was all right. Mm-hmm. That's all I have to say about that.
Oh, that's all I have to say about that.
Yep.
All right.
What is next? Is it
what are next?
Betting on Zero, right?
Yep, I was going to move to that next. Now, Betting on Zero is a documentary by the filmmaker Ted Braun, and it's basically about the story of the company of Herbalife and this man named Bill Ackman, who has he's made $1 billion short investment, which is essentially a bet that the company Herbalife will collapse.
Yeah, basically, he has control of some of the company's stock, and he sells it at a certain price, and then he waits for that price to plummet because Herbalife is a pyramid scheme, which is an unsustainable financial structure. He's waiting for that to fail, and then he's going to purchase the stock back at the much lower price and make a huge profit off of it.
Right. Ackman basically is, as the titles go, the type of investment he has. The short explanation of it is simply, if the company goes under, he becomes even richer than he is already.
Yeah.
It's
he calls himself a
activist investor.
Activist investor, yeah.
Because he believes that Herbalife is a immoral company, the way it's set up. And so he believes that running these companies out of business should be his job. Now, of course, that doesn't address the fact that he stands to make a lot of money, although he claims he's going to be giving it to charity, which I don't necessarily doubt.
But at the same time, he is a hedge fund investor. He's playing with other people's money.
Right. And the whole thing about, so yeah, he will be he will be putting his own profits into charity, but certainly not the profits of those who, those who he's borrowing on. And the fact of the matter is that the movie addresses both whether or not Herbalife is a pyramid scheme, which I'm going to say, after having seen this movie and also the half-hour episode of Stephen Colbert's last week tonight on Herbalife and other companies like it, yes, it's absolutely a pyramid scheme and should be run out of business.
Yeah.
But it also addresses the moral quandary of the way our stock market is set up. You can effectively bet on a company's failure and profit from it. And it questions whether that is a moral thing to do.
Yeah. The movie's also really interesting because there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time. Like, it's Herbalife's a pyramid scheme, and the movie is very much biased against Herbalife, but it doesn't give them a fair shake in the way they push. What?
From what I've read about Herbalife, rightly so. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But then, Herbalife also gets their chance to push back against Ackman and be like, no, this guy's trying to run us out of business and make a fast buck. We're totally legitimate, even though they're not. It's kind of like this whole conflict going on, along with investigating. The movie also spends a lot of time delving into what's going on with a group of immigrants, of illegal Mexican immigrants.
Not all illegal, but some.
Well, not necessarily undocumented. I'm sorry.
Some are undocumented. There are those citizens too. It's just within the Hispanic communities, Herbalife and other such companies are very popular because if you are looking to become to go into business for yourself, it's a very accessible and tempting offer because there's promises of big rewards. There is a structure set up to essentially help you get your business set up.
Well, the reason that I mentioned undocumented immigrants is because that was one of the core pieces of their problem, is that Herbalife and other pyramid schemes like to prey on undocumented immigrants because they see a quick source of income, and when they get fucked, they can't say anything or do anything about it because they're undocumented. They'll get
deported. Yeah.
So it's a really easy source of fast income for these pyramid schemes. So yeah, not all of them were undocumented, but it's important to note that some of them were, and that's what makes Herbalife that much more sinister.
Now, before we go further, I feel like we should do a quick definition for those who aren't fully familiar with what a pyramid scheme is.
Okay.
Can I say this?
Yes.
Have you guys both seen the John Oliver feature on this?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That he did not too long ago. Yeah. And the thing, I don't know if they mentioned this in the documentary you're referring to, but they really kind of hit the Spanish speaking market hard.
Yes,
they did.
Oh,
that's like literally almost a third of the film.
Yeah, and the John Oliver thing actually references the film. So.
Yeah, they do a whole bit in Spanish, and I when I watched that, I was like, thank God, because yeah, that's so manipulative and scumbag. Like,
exactly, and to go into it for those who may not know what we're talking about with the pyramid scheme, basically. Herbalife is a multi-level marketing company, and a multi-level marketing company, when it's operating legally, it basically is a company that they sell people. The company sells people on the opportunity to buy into their company's their company as part of the workforce. They're not a salaried workforce. They're essentially participants or sales people or distributors or consultants. They have various names that they are put under. And the revenue stream ostensibly is supposed to be you buy the right to be a representative of the company, and you get to sell the products that they provide you. And you can and you get to keep the profit off of the sales of the products, so long as you keep paying into their paying your entry fee into the company's program. And in multi-level marketing, when if you become a good enough salesman, you can put people under you, and you can start selling them opportunities to work. Similarly, you can sell other people opportunities to come join the company, so you can become a supervisor. Now, when it's operating legally, your main source of revenue is from selling those products. But when it becomes a pyramid scheme is when it gets to the point where it's basically near impossible to become profitable selling the products or services that the company provides. Instead, the main source of your profit is getting other people underneath you who you are supposedly supervising, because they pay you their cut every month. And then the goal is to get them to get people to put people under them, and on and on and on. The problem with a pyramid scheme is, if you do the math, you cannot...
Somebody has to get fucked on a pyramid scheme.
Yes, because something's eventually going to give. You can only repeat this process 13 times before you exceed the world population.
Right.
That's the problem.
One of the other things I really liked about this documentary, and I've talked with you about this, Ken, like the Dead Mall series from This is Dan Bell on YouTube.
Right.
This documentary has, through some of its sequences, a very, very pleasant 90s sheen to it.
That's a very interesting observation. I didn't think about.
Well, some of those videos of you know how they do, like, oh, I work for Herbalife and I'm a fucking millionaire because after just working 16 hours a week, and
and then it shows them on a jet ski or something.
On a jet ski in a resort, more women than they have dicks. It's like they got
two.
Well, I mean, 2 plus.
I guess we don't know him, so who knows? Maybe he's got a double barrel.
Like some of those videos, it's like got me some serious warm fuzzies, even though like they were very sinister. But I'm like, ooh, it's a lo-fi infomercial. Like, I really like that stuff.
Right. Well, Herbalife is one of those companies that has been around for a long enough time that you look at those older videos and those corporate training videos and such, and you really get a sense of the propaganda.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how, as a society, we are constantly becoming more and more sophisticated. And so if we look back on something just 10 or 20 years ago, you can see all of the seams that may not have been as visible to us when they came out at the time.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned that Herbalife is painted as the villain, but they also kind of they definitely do not show Ackman as the hero. Right.
Well, the thing is that Ackman is a self-promoting person, and I would argue that at least a good percentage of his motives for doing what he's doing is to get his name in newspapers.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that it started out with I need to help people from Herbalife, and then he saw how much money he can make, or vice versa. But there's definitely...
I doubt it started with I want to help people. It started with look at how much money I can make, and the bonus of this is it is taking down a company that's probably in need of being taken down.
Well, I think you're right. Like he wanted to make some money because that's what he does. He is a short seller.
Make some money, become famous, and then help people. That's his priority.
Because they mentioned at one point that Herbalife was the number 6 most popular company in the world, or most traded company in the world. And so when he saw how much money he could make, he said, so how can I take down this behemoth? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spin it into a PR campaign.
Mm-hmm.
so that I can get people on my side.
And
But
what's
at the end of the day,
fascinating, though, is you do get that dichotomy where, on one hand, you definitely want to support Ackman's position, because Herbalife is clearly, from what we've learned in all the research that's been done on it, it's clearly a company that is taking advantage of large swaths of people.
He's the Jim Cornette of fucking. Oh, that's a wrestling reference. Don't worry about it.
Well, here's the thing. I'll go ahead and throw some wrestling into this, Bill. Just because Ackman happens to be, just because he happens to be on the side of right in this case, doesn't mean he's not still a heel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, late in the movie, or throughout the movie, they cut to this major press conference with his investors that he had. And at the end of the day, they're like, why did this man just waste 3 hours of our time at 8 o'clock in the morning
Because
for an investigation with no ends? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not unlike nowadays in politics. There's all that buildup about, Comey's going to testify before Congress, and then he comes and he testifies, and he doesn't say a single piece of new information that we hadn't already read in the newspapers. He just confirmed it in his own words, and it's just like,
the best part of that hearing was John McCain.
Yeah, John McCain.
Really weird moment. Yeah. The John McCain malfunction.
Yeah, people thought it was awkward when Clint Eastwood went on the Republican National Convention and talked about a chair, but
it got more awkward when John McCain said President Comey.
Yeah,
and then Comey was like, "No, sir."
Yes.
But anyway, not to get into politics.
There's some crossover here because there's a political question about multi-level marketing. They have their political supporters.
And there's one thing I could say was a detraction from Betting on Zero. It's that this story is still very much going on.
Right.
The documentary came out early this year, and then at the end they're like, "Oh, by the way, since we filmed this, that, and that has happened." And it's like, well, it's not the end yet. Like, the documentary kind of leaves you a little bit unsatisfied in how this resolves.
And the nature of documentary filmmaking is, at some point you do have to decide, well, we have to have an ending. And
what?
I said
the nature, the people making documentary films, they don't got all day. They don't have all year to sit here and cover the whole story from start to finish.
And you can't always anticipate when something is going to end, because for all we know, Herbalife could still exist for infinite number of years, or maybe next week.
Herbalife does indeed still exist. They got fined by the FCC and restructured, quote unquote, their business model so that the earnings of their members is more focused on the product sales. But I would, and that's just like, it's just an observation that I made. Like, obviously you guys make valid points. I would like to see a Betting on Zero 1.5 or even a sequel where they supplement the existing footage and show us how everything ends.
Have you watched
Ackman still has his money invested in the short sell.
Right.
Have you Hawk, have you watched the follow-up to Tickled?
No, not yet.
It's on HBO.
It's just
I watched it on HBO. Yeah, I watched it on HBO Go, and it's kind of weird to find it on there, but it is there.
Okay.
It was good. I liked it. It was weird.
Right.
David D'Amato showed up at a screening of Tickled, and they have like all this footage of it.
There are so many documentaries out there that have follow-ups. Michael Moore's very first documentary, Roger and Me, about 10 years after that, he made a short film called Pets or Meat, Return to Flint. And it follows up on a lot of the characters he interviewed in Roger and Me, because it's life. Life is an ongoing story. There is no set end to the stories of all of these different companies and such, because it transcends. A documentary only has 120 minutes or so before people start to lose interest.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, I think it's a flaw that they don't have a really good way to end the documentary, but it's also not a flaw you can hold against the filmmaker so much as it's a flaw against just the conceit of this having to be a self-contained project.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that, like, it's not really a hit against the film or the filmmaker. I think it's a really good documentary, and I will totally keep an eye out for this director's upcoming projects. It's partly on me. I got so invested in the events of this documentary that when it ended, I was like, wait, I want more. Yeah. I want to know what happens, but it hasn't happened yet. So
exactly.
It's really not on anybody.
And to be fair, the Stephen Colbert episode was a wonderful follow-up to it. Actually filled in a lot of gaps to that, and it's still going now. I mean, you could do another follow-up episode in a few years too.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about betting on zero for enough time, or as I called it in the group chat a while ago, less than zero.
That's a different movie.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is Bill, Leon, and I are going to talk about the 1978 movie Piranha.
Oh, nice.
We had a lot of fun. Yeah, we had a lot of fun watching Piranha. And I think...
Now, Piranha was a film that was... it's produced, of course, by Roger Corman, and it conceived as a parody to Jaws, directed by Joe Dante, and with a screenplay by John Sayles. Both of whom have gone on to big careers as screenwriters and directors.
The term parody is, I would apply loosely, personally.
Well, it's not like a direct parody to Jaws, but it definitely parodies a lot of elements. And
once it gets into Act 2, yes, but the first act of the movie is just your basic Jaws type of buildup.
Well, and Piranha is what's good about Piranha is at no point does it take itself that seriously.
No, the plot of Piranha, outside of the characters, the plot of Piranha is that apparently the government has contacted the scientists, and he said, "Make us piranha that can survive in fresh water."
Right, because they wanted a biological weapon.
Yes. And he does that, and they get out, and that's the premise.
Yeah, they get out, and they're headed towards a popular Texas summer beach community by the river.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie, what's fascinating about the movie is this is a movie that both what I think is Joe Dante knew in advance that there was no way they were going to make a serious movie about Piranha. So he just decided to make it into the ultimate B comedy. It's not overt. He just made everything so corny. The main character, played by Bradford Dillman, is an alcoholic schlub to...
Where'd Bill go?
Hello.
What's up?
Who cut off? Is everybody cut off? What's going on?
No, I'm here.
All right, cool. So Piranha was a fun film. We watched it. It's just like late 70s, trashy B movie. We're trying to rip off Jaws. Like that's kind of the vibe that I got from it. Is like there's a lot of parallels to Jaws, and then there's a lot of parallels that aren't Jaws because they took the concept of Piranha and ran with it. Because, like I said, the whole thing is we're trying to genetically engineer piranha that can survive in fresh water, and that's a big plot point. of it. Is that we have all these killer fish that can swim around in regular, salt water. They're not going to die. We're going to sick them on some summer campers. And one of the summer campers is the daughter of the protagonist, who's this brawny man, badass dude. He's like, I need to save my daughter. Like, that's.
So I have a question for you. So I actually haven't seen the original Piranha, but I have seen the remake.
Should I watch the remake? That is my question for you.
So that's an interesting thing then, because I haven't seen the original, but I have seen the remake, and you were exactly the reverse of that.
Mm-hmm. Because
I the remake was a lot of fun, because actually the opening scene of the film is Richard Dreyfuss getting killed by a piranha. So the movie knows exactly what it's doing, and there are some amazing gore moments in this. Like the movie is actually called Piranha 3D because it released in 3D. Yeah,
and then the sequel is Piranha 3 Double D.
And Piranha 3 Double D is a terrible movie. It fucking sucks. It's literally like a little bit over an hour long, and then it's just I don't know. It's not a good movie at all. Like, I do not recommend Piranha 3 Double D, but Piranha 3D, maybe I should watch it again to kind of refresh myself. But I remember when I watched it, I was like, this is kind of awesome. And, they're legitimate thrills. I think Christopher Lloyd is in it.
Yes, he is in it. And Adam Scott is in it.
Yep.
Right?
And it gets kind of intense towards the end. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So yes, I would definitely say watch Piranha 3D, but I would not say not say that
the sequel.
Don't base Piranha 3D's quality on original Piranha, because I can't tell you how they measure up. So see them as two objectively different films.
I feel like they're on equal footing, and I haven't seen the remake, but like the first movie, I would probably recommend that you watch in the same kind of vein, in that like it's fun, it's goofy, it's cheesy, and it has problems. And that's what it is, like.
That sounds like Piranha 3D. I mean, it all those things, and there's a lot of very the movie knows when to make a joke, and it knows when it understands it's a stupid movie, but it also knows when it needs to be intense. Even those intense scenes are still kind of funny.
Yeah, that nails it. I think that's very accurate.
Then I think we probably will respectively enjoy the other version of the film.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was very curious about the remake because it's got a lot of comedians in it, right? Like. Adam Scott's in there. I think Paul Scheer is in Piranha 3D.
I think he is, yeah. He's not in it for long, though, and I'm pretty sure he dies pretty quickly, but I seem to remember him. There's
like a lot of titties in it, right?
There's a few titties. There's more in Piranha 3 Double D.
Well, that's why I assume there's a lot of titties in both of them, because the title 3 Double D.
Yeah.
Hey, big tits.
Fucking terrible movie, 3 Double D.
Oh God. Don't know that I want to watch that one, but
yeah, don't watch it again. Let me pull it up. It's got an hour and a half. No, it's not. It's an hour and 23 minutes according to this. But I'm almost 100% confident in the fact that this movie ends after a teensy bit over an hour, and then has the credits and outtakes and additional footage to round out the feature length running time.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Kind of like Master of Disguise.
Mm.
What's really disappointing is that Piranha 3 Double D is from the director of Feast.
I haven't seen that. What's
Feast? Feast is kind of awesome.
Hey there.
Hey.
Yeah, sorry about
Ken,
that. I have no idea what just happened. So
that's all right. What are your thoughts on Feast?
On Feast.
Feast,
like the
Ben Affleck produced Feast.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Okay.
I've seen Blood Feast. So I take it you were talking about that?
We were talking about Piranha, and as it turns out, Bill Leon has seen Piranha original and not the remake, Piranha 3D. I have seen Piranha 3D, but not the original.